Good morning, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of News on the Hour, a comprehensive show we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We get you national updates, international updates, updates from the world of business and sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, the top stories. Winter session of Parliament to begin today. Bill to repeal 3 farm laws listed as priority. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia likely to move the Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Bill 2020 in Lok Sabha. Government holds all-party meeting ahead of winter session of Parliament that starts today. Seeks healthy discussion and cooperation of all political parties for smooth functioning. Centre asks states and union territories to enforce intensive containment and active surveillance measures in wake of the new variant. Union Health Ministry revises guidelines for international arrivals in India to be effective from 1st December amidst the Omicron alarm. Omicron variant puts nations on alert. The US, UAE, Cyprus, Estonia imposed travel restrictions from today. New Zealand is likely to administer COVID booster doses due to the new variant. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa calls for lifting of travel ban due to Omicron, says the restrictions are scientifically unjustified. Adds that vaccination is the best defense against the new variant. In day 5 of India versus New Zealand first test match, Kiwis to resume 4-1 at stumps. India set 284 run target for New Zealand. Alright, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail now. The winter session of Parliament will begin today. The session, which will spread over a period of 25 days, will have 19 sittings. 36 bills and 1 financial item have been identified for being taken up during the session. On the first day of the session, Farm Laws Repeal Bill 2021 has been listed for introduction and passage in Lok Sabha. The bill will repeal the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020, the Farmers Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020, and to amend the Essential Commodities Act 1955. Besides this, other important bills which are listed in the business schedule include the Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Second Amendment Bill, and the Banking Laws Amendment Bill. The Electricity Amendment Bill, the National Anti-Doping Bill, and the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority Amendment Bill will also be taken up during the session. In financial business, the second batch of supplementary demands for grants for 2021-22 has been listed for discussion and voting. 3 bills will also be taken up to replace the ordinances promulgated during intersession. Ahead of the winter session of Parliament, a meeting of the Business Advisory Committee of Rajya Sabha is scheduled to be held today. The meeting will take place in Parliament at 10 a.m. to allocate time for government legislation and also other business. And ahead of the winter session of Parliament, the government convened an all-party meeting on Sunday. The all-party meeting was convened by the government and was attended by 42 leaders from 31 parties. While Vice President and Chairman of Rajya Sabha, M. Venkaiah Naidu, has convened a meeting of Rajya Sabha floor leaders. These meetings were convened to ensure smooth functioning of the House ahead of the commencement of Parliament session. Opposition parties assured their cooperation for smooth running of the Houses, while the government said that it is ready to discuss all issues in the Parliament. Besides these meetings, BJP Parliamentary Executive meeting was also held on Sunday. The meeting was attended by BJP National President JP Nadda, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Leader of the House in Rajya Sabha Piyush Goyal, among others, attended the meet. A separate meeting of floor leaders of National Democratic Alliance was also held on Sunday. Key bills and businesses to be taken up during the session were discussed in the meeting. An update now on the nationwide COVID vaccination drive. With the administration of 42,04,171 vaccine doses in the last 24 hours, India's COVID vaccination coverage has exceeded 122.41 crore. Cumulatively, 122 crore 41 lakh 68,929 vaccine doses have been administered across the country so far. An update on COVID situation from across the country now. The recovery of 9,905 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3 crore 40 lakh 8,183. India's recovery rate currently stands at 98.34%. Sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and the states and union territories continue the trend of less than 50,000 daily new cases that is being reported for 155 consecutive days now. 8,309 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The active caseload presently stands at 1,03,859. Active cases presently constitute 0.3% of the country's total positive cases, which is the lowest since March 2020. The testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The last 24 hours saw a total of 7,62,268 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 64.02 crore cumulative tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, the weekly positivity rate at 0.85% remains less than 1% for the last 15 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 1.09%, and it has remained below 2% for the last 56 days and below 3% for the last 91 days in a row now. Home Secretary Ajay Kumar Bhalla chaired an urgent meeting on the new COVID variant of concern, Omicron. The meeting was held with various experts, Member Health and Niti Aayog Dr. V.K. Paul, Principal Scientific Advisor to Prime Minister Dr. Vijay Raghavan, and senior officers from Health, Civil Aviation and other ministries. Various preventive measures in place and those to be further strengthened were discussed. The review and updation of standard operating procedure on testing and surveillance of incoming international passengers, especially for those countries identified at risk category, were also discussed. The strengthening and intensification of genomic surveillance of variants through the INSA-COG network was also agreed upon, with a focus on sampling and whole genome sequencing of international passengers, especially from those countries where Omicron variant has been detected. Airport health officials and port health officials will be sensitized for strict supervision of testing protocol at airports and also ports. The decision on effective date of resumption of scheduled commercial international passengers will be reviewed as per evolving global scenario. The Home Ministry said closer watch on emerging pandemic situation within the country will be maintained. The Union Health Secretary has advised states and union territories regarding testing, surveillance, monitoring of hospitals, augmentation of health infrastructure, genome sequencing and enhancing public awareness. In view of reporting of the new variant of COVID-19 named Omicron, the Health Ministry has revised guidelines for international arrivals in India to be effective from 1st of December. The ministry has mandated submitting 14 days of travel details, uploading negative RT-PCR test reports on the Air Suvidha portal before the journey. The RT-PCR test should have been conducted within 72 hours prior to the undertaking of the journey. As per the Health Ministry's guidelines, travellers from countries at risk will need to take the COVID test post-arrival and wait for results at the airport. If tested negative, they will follow home quarantine for 7 days, retest on the 8th day, and if negative, further self-monitoring for next 7 days would be advised. Travellers from countries excluding those countries at risk will be allowed to leave the airport and shall self-monitor their health for 14 days. A subsection 5% of total flight passengers shall undergo post-arrival testing at random at the airport on arrival. The cost of the testing of such travellers will be borne by Ministry of Civil Aviation. International travellers arriving through sea ports and land ports will also have to undergo the same protocol. As per the new guideline, children under age 5 are exempted from both pre- and post-arrival testing. However, if found symptomatic for COVID on the arrival or during the home quarantine period, they shall undergo testing and be treated as per laid down protocol. Amidst concerns due to the new COVID variant Omicron, the Delhi Disaster Management Authority will hold a meeting today to take a call on international passengers, especially from South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe and Hong Kong, informed the government sources. Experts and representatives from the Ministry of Civil Aviation are expected to attend the meeting, among others. Delhi Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal has also instructed the concerned officials to ensure strict adherence to COVID-appropriate behavior in public places and full preparedness in hospitals to handle any possible emergent situation. The Assam government will begin door-to-door first dose verification drive from today. The state government has set itself up to wrap up the first dose of COVID vaccination campaign by 5th of December and to ensure that every eligible citizen has got the jab. A verification team will come knocking at every house in each of the 33,530 polling stations of the state. The estimated vaccine eligible population of the state is around 2.1 crore. Now, according to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, 2,991,429 people have been vaccinated so far and more than 1.15 crore have got both the jabs. You're watching News on the Hour. We're heading for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a bit.
Namaste land. Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
نحن هنود
India.
माँ हिंदी हस्ती
Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India. Let's get you more international updates now. The US plans to ban travel from South Africa and 7 other southern African countries starting today. There have been no confirmed cases in the US yet, but Fauci said that it might already be here. Canada's health minister said that country's first 2 cases of Omicron were found in Ontario after 2 individuals who had recently traveled from Nigeria tested positive. The US has banned entry from 8 South African countries. The travel restrictions do not ban flights or apply to US citizens and lawful US permanent residents. The restrictions apply to South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique and also Malawi. Most non-US citizens who have been in these countries within the prior 14 days will not be allowed into the US. The United Arab Emirates has suspended entry for travelers from South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Botswana and Mozambique starting from today onwards due to concerns about a new variant of the virus. The Saudi ban comprises flights to and from these countries. However, the foreign nationals from the 7 countries could enter the kingdom if they had spent the previous 14 days in another country and comply with Saudi health protocols. In Estonia, arrivals from all European states are in effect subject to COVID restrictions from today after Spain moved down from the green list to the yellow list. Finland, France, Monaco and Portugal have also moved down to the red list starting from Monday. The Health Board has also urged all arrivals from all states, vaccinated and unvaccinated alike, to take a PCR test on arrival. Now, these will be provided free of charge. Arrivals should fill in an online passenger declaration form before arrival. The revised lists, which cover the European Union, the EEA and equivalent, including the United Kingdom and Switzerland and the Schengen area. The National Technical Advisory Committee on COVID in Bangladesh has recommended a travel ban on countries from which cases of the new variant Omicron have been reported. People with a recent travel history to these countries should be kept under a 14-day institutional quarantine on arrival in Bangladesh. The NTAC recommended strengthening of screening at all gateways, including air, land and waterways, and limiting the public gatherings in view of the new variant. Bangladesh has issued an alert to all its ports considering the spread of the Omicron variant of COVID-19 in some countries like South Africa. Spokesperson of the Directorate General of Health Services told media that the government is taking all measures to prevent the spread of the new variant, as the WHO has called it a variant of concern. Earlier, Bangladesh Health Minister Zahid Malik had said that the government has directed all relevant organizations to take emergency measures to prevent the highly contagious new variant Omicron. Meanwhile, COVID positivity rate in Bangladesh continues to be low at 1.03% on Sunday. The country reported 3 deaths and 205 new cases over the last 24 hours on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, New Zealand will start administering COVID booster doses of COVID-19 vaccine from today. Now, the country's regulatory authority, MedSafe, has already approved the use of Pfizer as a booster for people above 18. Booster vaccinations will be available throughout the country from today onwards. While the priority was getting people fully vaccinated, healthcare, border workers and Komatua who have been fully vaccinated for 6 months or more could now get their boosters. South African president has condemned travel bans enacted against his country and its neighbors over the new COVID variant Omicron. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said that he was deeply disappointed after the rich Western countries for their knee-jerk imposition of travel bans after hearing about the new variant. He also said that the country faced a 4th wave of COVID within weeks as the new Omicron variant was driving a rise in infections in the most populated province of Gauteng. He also urged all countries to take back the travel restrictions so that the South African economy does not get affected.
We are deeply disappointed by the decision of several countries to prohibit travel from a number of Southern African countries, including our own, following the identification of the Omicron. This is a clear and completely unjustified departure from the commitment that many of these countries made at the meeting of the G20 countries in Rome last month. These restrictions are completely unjustified and unfairly discriminate against our country and our Southern African sister countries. We call upon these countries that have imposed travel bans on our country and our other Southern African sister countries to immediately and urgently reverse their decisions and lift the bans.
He also described the emergence of the Omicron variant as a wake-up call for the world regarding vaccine inequality, warning that until everyone was vaccinated, more variants were inevitable.
The emergence of the Omicron variant should be a wake-up call to the world that vaccine inequality cannot be allowed to continue. Until everyone is vaccinated, everyone will continue to be at risk. instead of prohibiting travel, the rich countries of the world need to support the efforts of developing countries, economies that is, to access and to manufacture enough vaccine doses for their people without delay.
Meanwhile, a third case of Omicron COVID variant has been detected in the United Kingdom. The UK Health Security Agency in fact said that the person in the third UK case had been linked to travel in southern Africa. Testing is being carried out at locations they visited in London's Westminster area. The agency said that it was very likely more cases would be found in the coming days. The UK government, meanwhile, set out measures in response to the variant, including mandatory face masks in shops and on public transport in England. Other measures will see people arriving in the UK required to take PCR tests and isolate themselves until they get a negative result. Both these requirements and also the mask mandate will come into effect from Tuesday. Also, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has called the new measure for England temporary and precautionary and said that they would be reviewed in 3 weeks just before schools break out for the Christmas holidays. 10 countries in southern Africa are now on the UK's travel red list, meaning that until further notice, any British or Irish residents arriving in the United Kingdom after recently visiting any of those countries will have to quarantine in an approved hotel for 10 days. The residents from the countries themselves will not be allowed into the UK until the red list status changes. Meanwhile, an urgent meeting of the G7 health ministers will be held today to discuss the developments on Omicron. Australia will review its plan to reopen borders to skilled migrants and students from 1st of December. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the country, after reported its first few cases of the Omicron variant, 2 people who arrived in Sydney from southern Africa tested positive on Sunday for the newly identified variant, as officials ordered 14 days quarantine for the citizens returning from 9 African countries. A potential third positive case in Sydney is under investigation.
The fact that we've had a new variant, that is not a surprise. We've been saying all through the pandemic that new variants will come and we'll deal with them as they turn up. We'll get the best information, we'll work together, we'll make sensible, practical, balanced decisions. And my key message to people is just to remain calm, do what you're doing, follow all the same usual procedures, get your booster shot, get your second vaccine. Let's get that vaccination rate up over 90%. We're on track for that. It makes us one of the most highly vaccinated countries in the world. We're not in the situation we were back in March of 2020. We're in a very different situation to deal with these things now, and Australia has done very well.
And in the latest development, the Northern Territory has detected its first case of the Omicron strain, but authorities say that there is no risk to the community because the man has been in quarantine since touching down in Darwin. Health Minister Natasha Files said that genomic testing had confirmed that an Australian man. We'll get to more on that in a while from now, but from here we take you to Parliament, where the Prime Minister has arrived. The winter session of Parliament will begin today, and here in the visuals we see the car kit of the Prime Minister arriving at the Parliament House, and also in a while from now the Prime Minister will be addressing the media persons. This is a routine exercise which is followed by the Prime Minister before the start of session of the Parliament. The Prime Minister interacts and he sets the momentum, sets the tone ahead for the session that is to begin. And here the Prime Minister is flanked by, yes,
नमस्कार साथियों, संसद का ये सत्र अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण है। देश आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहा है। हिंदुस्तान में चारों दिशाओं में से इस आज़ादी के अमृत महोत्सव के निमित्त रचनात्मक, सकारात्मक, जनहित के लिए, राष्ट्रहित के लिए सामान्य नागरिक अनेक कार्यक्रम कर रहे हैं, कदम उठा रहे हैं और आज़ादी के दीवानों ने जो सपने देखे थे उन सपनों को पूरा करने के लिए सामान्य नागरिक भी इस देश का अपना कोई न कोई दायित्व निभाने का प्रयास कर रहा है। ये खबरें ये अपने आप में भारत के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शुभ संकेत है। कल हमने देखा है, पिछले दिनों संविधान दिवस भी नए संकल्प के साथ संविधान के स्पिरिट को चरितार्थ करने के लिए हर किसी के दायित्व के संबंध में पूरे देश ने एक संकल्प किया है। इन सब के परिप्रेक्ष्य में हम चाहेंगे, देश भी चाहेगा, देश का हर सामान्य नागरिक चाहेगा कि भारत का संसद का ये सत्र और आगे आने वाले भी सत्र आजादी के दीवानों की जो भावनाएं थी, जो स्पिरिट था, आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव का जो स्पिरिट है, उस स्पिरिट के अनुकूल संसद भी देश हित में चर्चाएं करे, देश की प्रगति के लिए रास्ते खोजे, देश की प्रगति के लिए नए उपाय खोजे और इसके लिए ये सत्र बहुत ही विचारों की समृद्धि वाला, दूरगामी प्रभाव पैदा करने वाले सकारात्मक निर्णयों वाला बने। मैं आशा करता हूं कि भविष्य में संसद को कैसा चलाया, कितना अच्छा कंट्रीब्यूशन किया, उस तराजू पे तोला जाए, न कि किसने कितना जोर लगा करके संसद के सत्र को रोक दिया। ये मानदंड नहीं हो सकता है। मानदंड ये होगा कि संसद में कितने घंटे काम हुआ, कितना सकारात्मक काम हुआ। हम चाहते हैं सरकार हर विषय पर चर्चा करने के लिए तैयार है, खुली चर्चा करने के लिए तैयार है। सरकार हर सवाल का जवाब देने के लिए तैयार है और आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव में हम ये भी चाहेंगे कि संसद में सवाल भी हो, संसद में शांति भी हो। हम चाहते हैं संसद में सरकार के खिलाफ, सरकार की नीतियों के खिलाफ जितनी आवाज प्रखर होनी चाहिए हो, लेकिन संसद की गरिमा, स्पीकर की गरिमा, चेयर की गरिमा, इन सब के विषय में हम वो आचरण करें जो आने वाले दिनों में देश की युवा पीढ़ी को काम आए। पिछले सत्र के बाद कोरोना की एक विकट परिस्थिति में भी देश ने 100 करोड़ से अधिक डोजेज कोरोना वैक्सीन और अब हम 150 करोड़ की तरफ तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। नए वेरिएंट की खबरें भी हमें और सतर्क करती हैं और सजग करती हैं। मैं संसद के सभी साथियों को भी सतर्क रहने के लिए प्रार्थना करता हूं। आप सभी साथियों को भी सतर्क रहने के लिए प्रार्थना करता हूं, क्योंकि आप सबका उत्तम स्वास्थ्य, देशवासियों का उत्तम स्वास्थ्य ऐसी संकट की घड़ी में हमारी प्राथमिकता है। देश के 80 करोड़ से अधिक नागरिकों को इस कोरोना काल के संकट के में और अधिक तकलीफ न हो, इसलिए प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण योजना से अनाज मुफ्त में देने की योजना चल रही है। अब इसे मार्च 2022 तक समय आगे कर दिया गया है। करीब 2,60,000 करोड़ रुपए की लागत से 80 करोड़ से अधिक देशवासियों को गरीब के घर का चूल्हा जलता रहे, इसकी चिंता की गई है। मैं आशा करता हूं कि इस सत्र में देश हित के निर्णय हम तेजी से करें, मिलजुल करके करें, सामान्य मानवीय की आशा अपेक्षाओं को पूर्ण करने वाले करें, ऐसी मेरी अपेक्षा है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
So that was Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacting with the media persons ahead of the winter session of Parliament that begins today, and he was flanked by the MPs there. He talked of the expectations from this session and how this session is going to be significant in view of the nation celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. He also talked of how the dreams of the nation have to be fulfilled, for which every citizen is contributing his or her bit. He also referred to the Constitution Day, which was recently celebrated, and he said that the expectation from the session is that the session should be conducted smoothly in line with the spirit of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. He also referred that the session should be evaluated according to the work and the legislation that will be transacted and not disruptions. He also said that the government is ready to discuss and answer any questions. He also wished for Samvad and Shanti during the session, and he noted that the sessions be held in the future, upholding the dignity of the forum. The Prime Minister also cautioned against the new strain that has been witnessed, Omicron, that has been witnessed in many parts of the world, and he also talked of the measures which have been taken by the government in these pandemic times. He again noted that Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana has been extended till March next year, and he wished luck for smooth functioning of the Parliament, and that was Prime Minister giving out his statement ahead of the winter session of Parliament that begins today. At present, we are heading for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back with news on the hour.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching News on the Hour, and Japan today announced that it will suspend entry of all foreign visitors from around the world as a new COVID variant spreads. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said that the measure will take effect from Tuesday. The decision means that Japan will restore border controls that it eased earlier this month for short-term business visitors, foreign students and workers. Over the weekend, Japan tightened entry restrictions for people arriving from South Africa and 8 other countries, requiring them to undergo a 10-day quarantine period at government-designated facilities. On November 8, Japan eased its ban on new entries by foreigners to allow business people, students and technical interns into the country on the condition that their host organization agrees to take responsibility for monitoring their movement. Canada's health minister said that the country's first 2 cases of Omicron have been found in Ontario after 2 individuals who had recently travelled from Nigeria tested positive. They are the first cases to be detected in North America. Canada has banned travellers who have visited southern African countries in the past 2 weeks in a ban which came into effect on Friday. The European Union needs to buy more time to assess fully the implications of the new Omicron variant. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that the bloc needed to take precautionary measures to limit the impact of the new variant, including boosting vaccination, which was the highest priority. She said that Pfizer-BioNTech, which has a new contract with the European Commission for 1.8 billion doses of the vaccines concluded over summer, would adapt its vaccine to new variants within 100 days.
We take this Omicron variant very serious, and we know that we are now in a race against time. Why that? Because we know not all about this variant, but it is a variant of concern. And the scientists and manufacturers need 2 to 3 weeks to have a full picture about the quality of the mutations of this Omicron variant. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And highest priority right now is indeed social distancing, reduce the contacts, but vaccinate and boost as much as possible.
Top U.S. infectious disease official Dr. Anthony Fauci on Sunday warned that the Omicron COVID variant was easily transmissible and might override any existing immunity received from vaccines or prior infection. Omicron has emerged as many countries in Europe are already battling a surge in COVID infections, with some reintroducing restrictions on social activity to try to stop the spread. Even as many developed countries are giving third-dose boosters, less than 7% of people in poorer countries have received their first COVID shot, according to medical and human rights groups.
Profile of the mutations strongly suggest that it's going to have an advantage in transmissibility and that it might evade immune protection that you would get, for example, from a monoclonal antibody or from the convalescent serum after a person's been infected, and possibly even against some of the vaccine-induced antibodies. So it's not necessarily that that's going to happen, but it's a strong indication that we really need to be prepared for that.
The Omicron variant of the virus is probably already circulating in France, as per the French health minister, adding that the government was tightening restrictions to contain its spread. France is in the midst of a 5th wave of the virus. It recorded more than 37,000 positive cases on Saturday and a sharp rise in number of patients in the ICUs. The health ministry recommended on Saturday the isolation of any contact person at risk of a possible case or a confirmed case of the Omicron variant, even vaccinated, in documents sent to establishments and health professionals. Health Minister Oliver Véran announced stricter measures earlier this week, such as requirement of a 3rd jab 5 months after the 2nd jab for the health pass to be considered valid, and mask wearing indoors. Also, France did not opt for another lockdown, saying that social distancing, vaccination and the health passes would be sufficient to counter its 5th wave. In the latest update, Dutch health authorities on Sunday confirmed that 13 cases of the new Omicron COVID variant have been found in the Netherlands among passengers who were on 2 flights from South Africa that arrived on Friday. The Dutch investigation began with testing of all the people who arrived on the 2 flights from South Africa at Amsterdam's airport on Friday, before the Dutch government changed its rules on air traffic from Southern Africa due to concerns over the variant. The discovery of Omicron, dubbed as a variant of concern by the World Health Organization, has sparked worries around the world that it could resist vaccinations and prolong the nearly 2-year COVID pandemic. Dutch health authorities on Saturday detected 61 COVID cases among people who flew from South Africa on Friday. The cases were discovered among around 600 passengers who arrived at Amsterdam's airport on 2 flights on Friday. Amidst concerns over the potentially highly transmissible new COVID variant, Moderna Chief Medical Officer Paul Burton has said that he suspects the new Omicron variant may elude current vaccines, and if that is the case, a reformulated vaccine shot could be available early next year. Moderna's Chief Medical Officer said on Sunday that if a new vaccine to tackle the Omicron variant of the virus was needed, it would likely be ready early next year. Dr. Paul Burton, Chief Medical Officer at the biotech company, said that it would take a couple of weeks to know whether the current available vaccines can provide protection against the variant. And G7 health ministers are to hold an emergency meeting today on the new Omicron COVID strain as experts race to understand what the variant means for the fight to end the pandemic. The meeting was called by G7 chair Britain, which is among a steadily growing number of countries detecting cases of the heavily mutated new strain. So far, the Omicron strain has been detected in at least a dozen countries, including Britain, Germany, France, Denmark, Israel, Canada, Hong Kong, Australia and South Africa. Meanwhile, Angola became the first southern African country to suspend all flights from its regional neighbors, Mozambique, Namibia and South Africa. A quick update on the COVID situation from across the world. COVID cases, as we told you, are swiftly rising. So far, the world has registered over 26 crore 17 lakh cases, while the number of recoveries stands above 23 crore 63 lakh. More than 52 lakh 17,000 lives have been lost due to the pandemic. The US continues to remain worst affected by the virus. The country has registered more than 4 crore 90 lakh cases of the disease, with death toll surpassing 7 lakh 99,000. Meanwhile, the European countries have again been witnessing a boom in COVID cases, with UK registering the highest number of cases in the continent. The country has more than 1 crore 1 lakh cases of COVID, followed by France, that has over 76 lakh 20,000 cases. Germany trails behind France, registering more than 57 lakh 82,000 cases, while Italy has also been seeing a spike where the number of cases stand above 50 lakh. And in the latest development coming in from Myanmar, a court in Myanmar is expected to deliver a verdict on ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi tomorrow for allegedly breaching COVID restrictions during a general election campaign. The verdict will be first in Suu Kyi's trial, and she is facing 11 criminal cases with maximum sentences that total more than a century in jail. Those include corruption and violating the Official Secrets Act. Suu Kyi's court hearings are being conducted behind closed doors, and defense lawyers, the only source of information on the proceedings, are imposed gag orders by the authorities. The country's military had seized power on 1st of February, overthrowing and detaining the elected civilian leader Suu Kyi. It said that it took power because its complaints of fraud by Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party, which won last year's election in a landslide, were being ignored by the Election Commission. However, the NLD says that it won fairly. On the edge of Hoylivka, a town in Ukraine controlled by the separatists since 2014, residents are trapped between the two warring sides. This conflict, according to the Ukrainian government, has killed more than 14,000 people. Russia has accused Ukraine of preparing to try to recapture the breakaway eastern regions by force. This accusation has been denied by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Also, Ukraine fears that Russia might use that as a pretext to launch a full-scale war. Moscow says this is false and alarmist. one day before the former British colony of Barbados sheds Queen Elizabeth as monarch and becomes a republic, breaking its last remaining imperial bonds with Britain nearly 400 years since the first English ship arrived at the Caribbean island. The government held a national service of thanksgiving and consecrated the new military colours at a ceremony in Bridgetown. Attended by Barbados's first president-elect, Dame Sandra Mason, Prime Minister Mayor Motley and Chief Justice Sir Patterson Cheltenham, along with foreign dignitaries, including Trinidad and Tobago President Her Excellency Paula May Weekes and also Antigua Governor-General Sir Rodney Williams. The ceremony celebrated 55 years since the country declared independence. Barbados became the world's newest republic after cutting ties with the British monarchy. A vigil was held on Folkestone Beach in England on Sunday for the 27 people who died on Wednesday as they crossed the Channel from France. People gathered on the British beach to honor the migrants whose boats sank as they tended to get into Britain, with many placing flowers or notes down on the sand. Following the deaths, Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson wrote to French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday, setting out 5 steps the two countries could take to deter migrants from making the perilous journey across the Channel. However, France cancelled an invitation to British Interior Minister Priti Patel to attend a meeting on the issue after Johnson published the letter on Twitter. The row deepened the rift between the two countries, which are also at loggerheads over post-Brexit trading rules and fishing rights. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake shook the remote Amazon region of northern Peru on Sunday and was felt as far as Lima in the center of the country, destroying 75 homes but with no deaths reported. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo walked among the rubble of homes destroyed by the quake that rattled the South American nation. Castillo visited the town of Jalca Grande in the Amazonas region to show his support to those affected by the dramatic quake. The president reassured the victims that the government is prepared to provide help. He also said that those affected would receive aid to rebuild their homes. The Seismological Center of the Geophysical Institute of Peru said that the earthquake had a depth of 131 kilometers and that was the epicenter. The epicenter was 98 kilometers from the town of Santa Maria de Nieva in the province of Condorcanqui. Streams of lava flowed from a new opening on La Palma's volcano as the eruption entered its 10th week. Canary Islands Volcanological Institute said that one new lava vent opened overnight on the Cumbre Vieja volcano as huge clouds of smoke billowed into the sky. La Palma Airport was finally able to reopen on Sunday after cleaning services removed the accumulation of ash from the past days. The first major snowfall of the season fell on Toronto, blanketing Canada's largest city in white as it kicks off the holiday season. Some areas have seen 5 to 8 centimeters of snow as winter-hardy Canadians donned coats, hats and gloves to set about their daily chores. The Toronto metropolitan area is under a winter weather travel advisory and highway authorities have reported several traffic accidents. Environment Canada forecast 2 to 5 additional centimeters of snow in the city throughout the day and reported the possibility of more snow this week. Doe Emhoff, who described himself as the first second gentleman of the United States and as our nation's first Jewish second gentleman, took part in the White House ceremony to mark the first night of Hanukkah on Sunday, the 8th-day Hanukkah celebration, also known as the Festival of Lights. The lighting of the national menorah in Washington on the ellipse near the White House dates back to 1979 when the then President Jimmy Carter participated in the ceremony at nearby Lafayette Park. Let's talk of sports now. After removing Will Young cheaply on 2 innings to pick the remaining 9 New Zealand wickets on the final day of the Kanpur Test to go 1-0 up in the ongoing 2-match series. New Zealand, on the other hand, resumed day 5 from the overnight score of 4 runs for 1 down. Tom Latham, who fell 5 runs short from a deserving century in the 5 innings, started the proceedings with night watchman William Somersville. Also, Black Caps were at 53 for the loss of 1 wicket when the reports last came in. In football, Chelsea's lead at the top of the Premier League was cut to a point after they were held at home by Manchester United. Chelsea have 30 points from 13 games, with City on 29 points, and Liverpool are a further point behind. United, with Michael Carrick in temporary charge of the team following the sacking of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, left Cristiano Ronaldo on the bench and fielded a defensive lineup designed to frustrate the league leaders. Chelsea dominated the first half, with United sitting deep and tight with 3 defensive midfielders in front of a back 4 without the suspended Harry Maguire and also injured Repeal Varane. In Premier League fixtures, Manchester City beat West Ham United by 2-1. Manchester City midfielder pair Gundogan and Fernandinho were on target as Pep Guardiola's Premier League superiority over West Ham continued. City have now won 10 of 11 top-flight meetings with the Hammers under the Spaniard. The Londoners remain 4th despite suffering successive Premier League defeats for the first time since April. And Leicester beat Watford in a hugely entertaining match to ruin Claudio Ranieri's return to the King Power Stadium. Maddison secured the first goal of the match in 16 minutes. Jamie Vardy scored twice for Leicester City, followed by Lookman, who added another goal in 68 minutes. Ranieri was in the opponent's dugout for the first time since guiding the Foxes to a 2015-16 Premier League title and received a great reception from the home fans. The victory takes Leicester up from 13th into 10th, while Watford remains 16th, 4 points above the relegation zone. Ivan Toney's 24-minute penalty secured Brentford a first Premier League win in 6 games as Everton slumped to a 1-0 defeat on Super Sunday. Toney struck from the penalty spot to decide a contest, starved of quality after Andros Townsend was penalised for a high boot on Frank Onyeka upon VAR review. It was a sweet moment for Toney, who spoke in midweek of having not been given a fair chance under Rafael Benitez when the pair were at Newcastle in 2018. The result moves Brentford above Everton into 12th place, with the Toffees slipping to 14th, 6 points above the relegation zone. All right, that's it in this edition of News on the Hour this morning. But before we go, we leave you with some beautiful images. Through synergy of intellect, artistry and grace comes into existence the eternal joy and peace. And before we end, take a look at these images coming in from Moscow's iconic Red Square, where the ice rink reopened with a splendid show featuring Olympic dancer Tatiana Navka. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.